In this video, we'll be focusing on the slope of a line. So in regards to these learning objectives, the first one is identifying if an equation is a linear equation and identifying the slope and intercepts. So in the last section, we identified the intercepts. In this section, we're going to identify the slope. The next one, given one representative, I can identify the other three being graphical. So this is not so much here, but translating it back from graphical to an equation is where we're building up to. And the last one, we're going to be talking about non-vertical lines and different type of forms, standard, point slope, and slope intercept forms. For each of these, we're building up to that by defining the slope. So how do we find the slope? Well, to find the slope, you need to identify 2 points on the line. Just like if you were to graph a line, you would need 2 distinct points. To find the slope, you need 2 distinct points. So I just want to note that this is an example of a line that is graphed appropriately with the axes labeled as x and y and some numbering to indicate the scale. So if you were ever to graph a line, this is a perfect example for you to go. Now, to identify 2 points in the line, I use these labels to find some points. So for instance, there's a point right here, and it looks like it's at 3 on the x and 3 on the y. So this is the point 3, 3. I'm identifying particular points that look rather nice to graph. I'll be honest with you. You can pick other points, but I'm choosing ones on the grid just to make our lives easier. I'm going to identify this other point here. That looks like it's at 6, 5. So these are our 2 points. So now zooming in a bit, we can start talking about what the slope actually is. So over here, we notice that this comes over 3. And it rises up 2. Adjusting our camera slightly, we can see that the slope is m. M is the traditional letter for the slope, which is defined to be rise over run, which in this case here, we go up 2, and the run is the horizontal, so we go over 3. So we get that the slope is 2/3. Now I just want you to note that 2 is equal to 5 minus 3, and that this 3 comes from the 6 minus 3. Because if you look here, this point's over here at 6, this point over here is at 3, the difference there is 3. So we can also write this as equal to 5 minus 3 divided by 6 minus 3. So in general, given 2 points on the line, say x1, y1, and x2, y2, with the 1s and the 2s being subscripts, we get the slope is equal to m is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And this is the rise over run. So that's the general formula for the slope given 2 points. So all you need to do is find 2 points on that line. So in this case here, we have our 2 points as 3, 3 and 6, 5. So I'm going to label this 3 as an x1, this 3 as a y1, this 6 as an x2, and this 5 as a y2. I want to point out it does not matter the points or the labeling as long as you consistently put the x2 and the y2 in the front and the x1 and the y1 over here. It has to have that particular order. So using this formula with these points, we can see that m is equal to 5 minus 3 divided by 6 minus 3, which is still that 2/3. So how do we get a slope from an equation? So going back to the previous section, you need to find 2 points on the equation. So with this line here, x minus 3y is equal to 6, I'm going to find the two intercepts. So you can also use the intercepts on the graph. The reason I didn't for the previous graph is the x and y intercepts look like fractions, so I wanted to choose nice numbers for it. You can do fractions, it's just, fractions. So I'm going to first find the x-intercept, which corresponds to the point x comma 0. So in this case here, remember, to find the x-intercept, you set y to be 0. So in this case here, we have x minus 3 times 0 is equal to 6. So then x is equal to 6, giving us our x-intercept to be 6 comma 0. It's a nice point. We also get our y-intercept. So in this case here, you set the x to 0 and then solve for the y-coordinate. So in this case here, we have 0 minus 3y is equal to 6. So we have minus 3y is equal to 6. Dividing both sides by that negative 3, we get y is equal to 6 over negative 3, which is equal to negative 2. So our y-intercept is the point 0 comma negative 2. So to find our slope, we get m, again, is equal to rise over run. And in this case here, it's going to be y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So we have 2 points, and honestly, it does not matter which ones you pick. I'm just going to choose the x1, so this is going to be x1, that's going to be y1, this is going to be x2, and that's going to be y2. Just for labeling. It does not matter which order you pick, as long as you associate the x1 and y1 to the same point. So in this case here, our y2 is minus 2, and I put parentheses there just so I can keep track of everything. Our y1 is 0. Divided by our x2 is 0, and then minus our x1, which is 6. So just simplifying this is negative 2 over negative 6, which is equal to 1/3. So our slope of this line is 1/3. There is a way to read off the slope, and that will be covered in the lesson.